The Death Stranding 2 release date may have been leaked, but we have conflicting reports from somebody in the know who typically has good intel on games and their release dates. Now, I, for one, welcome shorter marketing approaches. Sony PlayStation seems to be embracing shorter windows of time for marketing a game before it releases. They've been very, very quiet about a lot of what is potentially coming in 2024. I've even said that if a game is not coming out in the next 12 to 18 months, that I really don't want to hear about it. My least favorite trailers are the ones with, sort of an art style approach, or maybe they might show you the logo, and then when they show you the logo, they don't show you anything else. And there's no release date, there's no release year, there's nothing. And so I do think PlayStation's leaning more into a model of only talking about and marketing games when they're coming out within the next 12, maybe 18 months. But Death Stranding 2 is a different animal. Kojima doesn't really answer to PlayStation, and he may want to market the game earlier than I would expect from PlayStation if they were in charge. So I want to look at an article from The Gamer first. They're the ones sort of talking about how this may have been leaked by an artist. We saw something similar happen with the Wolverine release date apparently getting leaked by an artist or somebody, working on the projects. But then I want to look at what somebody in the know is saying that looks like a very, very different claim. So you can see here at thegamer.com reporting that Death Stranding 2 launching in 2025, according to an artist. Death Stranding 2's launch window might have just been leaked as it is listed for a 2025 release date. Now, this doesn't mean that they're necessarily breaking from shorter marketing cycles, okay? This still could be landing early 2025. So if this shows up anytime in the near future as an announcement or marketing, that still, is 18 months out if it can land in the earlier part of 2025. They say the following: Death Stranding 2 could launch in 2025, according to one of the game's artists. This comes from the artist's online portfolio, where they list Death Stranding 2, one of the many projects they've worked on, as a 2025 release, perhaps indicating that we'll get an official release date soon. Now, again, we covered this with Wolverine. Now, that actually is related to this story, okay? So when we look at the confirmation or maybe the conflicting report from somebody else about this particular game, we might find that Wolverine isn't coming next year, according to this person, but we'll look at that in a moment. More from the article: depending on when in 2025 it launches, this could put the gap between sequels at 6 years, so Death Stranding 2 would have certainly enjoyed a lengthy development cycle. Kojima Productions is yet to respond to this potential leak, though, so it's not clear if this 2025 release window is accurate. Listen, I don't expect these companies to reply every time an artist accidentally posts something on their portfolio or something gets leaked. That's not really what these companies should be doing. They're not like hyper monitoring Reset Era or 4chan or Reddit or Twitter. That's sort of ridiculous. Now, sometimes companies will speak out and say that something is false. In my opinion, usually when the artist takes it down, that feels like soft confirmation. So the artist that took the Wolverine post down, I was like, maybe that's confirmation that is in fact the release window for the game. They say here that this release date listing was spotted by Reset Era user RedKongXIX. They haven't shared the name of the artist, but they say that they have appeared in the credits of the games they list on their ArtStation portfolio. And then they note here that Death Stranding was the first game developed by Kojima Productions, so people are, kind of waiting for the sequel. It had mixed reviews. There are people that call it a walking simulator. There are people that call it visionary. It really depends on if you even played the game all the way through. I wish I would have had time for it. My difficulty right now with games is if they have really, really long tail engagement, it's really difficult for me in my current life situation to play super lengthy games because I can only play for a few hours a night, if that, with 2 kids and a busy schedule and sports and school and other commitments. It's very difficult, but a lot of people that did play the first Death Stranding really talked about how great that it was. Now they continue here. One complicating matter here is that according to the original poster, the artist works for a third party that works alongside Kojima Productions. With this in mind, it's not clear if they would actually have been made aware of the currently unannounced release date, so 2025 may be a guess on their part rather than confirmation. In general, I don't see an artist just randomly guessing on a launch window. That seems kind of strange. Like, why would you say, oh yeah, it's coming in 2025? You would just say that you're working on Death Stranding 2. This is likely a projected date, or maybe something that they're working on internally with respect to timelines. They wouldn't just randomly, I don't think, again, I'm not the artist, so I'm not necessarily trying to speak for them, but I don't think an artist would just throw out a random date and be like, oh yeah, this thing's coming in 2025 if it wasn't. I think that would be kind of strange to put a date if they hadn't heard anything. I think if they hadn't heard anything, there's no need to guess. They would just say what they're working on. So continuing here in the article, it says, still, it could be legit as the release window does seem feasible. Some may be disappointed that we're not getting the highly anticipated sequel sooner, but with how long game development cycles are taking this generation, it's a treat to know that we might see it in this half of the decade. Personally, I think you're going to start to see more and more games get pushed out a little bit because they're going to start trying to leverage more of the next-gen power, and we're even hearing... we saw this with Final Fantasy 16. It didn't seem that they were planning on doing a performance mode. That performance mode, in my estimation and opinion, is incomplete because it doesn't maintain 60 FPS outside of combat. That, to me, is not a performance mode. We're now hearing, stuff about Wonder Woman being 30 FPS, and they're hoping to have a performance mode. I'm worried that a lot of these dev cycles started too early, and now they're sort of looking at the next gen and saying, listen, we got to have performance mode. We got to have good performance, and with a game like Death Stranding 2, maybe they're wanting to push more ray tracing. Maybe they're wanting to push more of, just really, really good-looking textures and lighting that they maybe didn't do in the first one to help it stand apart, and that's going to push release dates out. Now, when would they talk about this? Well, I think this is good speculation here. It says, we have the Game Awards coming up soon. So it might not be long at all until these rumors are put to rest. Perhaps we'll get a proper release date of the December 7th showcase, or at least confirmation that it will be with us at some point in 2025. Still, some more hopeful fans might be crossing their fingers for a date that's a little closer than that, so we'll have to wait and see what Kojima Productions is cooking right now. Presumably, it doesn't have too much going on to distract itself from the sequel, so who knows. Now, I want to look at conflicting reports, though, because we have people claiming that Death Stranding 2 is actually coming in 2024, and this does affect what we previously reported about Wolverine. So this was tweeted by Hugo, and he was pointing out what Shinobi said on Reset Era. Now, Shinobi is pretty much in the know, and he says here, Shinobi confirms Rise of the Ronin and Death Stranding 2 are launching in 2024, along with, quote, other stuff, when speaking about single-player games from SIE, Sony Interactive Entertainment, and games as a service titles will be Helldivers 2 and Concord. Now, the thing to pay attention to here is Shinobi is quote tweeting or quoting somebody, sort of quote posting on the forum, and says, I think Death Stranding 2 and Rise of the Ronin will be their big single-player games of 2024. Probably no big single-player releases from first-party studios. So this person's saying probably. Shinobi doesn't correct that. What they say is, there's other stuff down here. There's other stuff. Whether it makes it or not is another question, of course. LOL. So Shinobi seemingly confirming that, yes, the plan currently is to have Death Stranding 2 and Rise of the Ronin be their big single-player releases of 2024, but no word about, there's not going to be any big single-player releases from first-party studios. If there is no single-player releases for first-party studios next year, that would be interesting. It would seem a little bit strange. But it also would mean that Wolverine's not coming next year, because that was the current rumor and the current prediction and the current thought is that Insomniac's, their cadence has been very impressive. Maybe they were able to offload a lot of people from Spider-Man 2 because they were able to utilize so much of the existing assets of the city and the movesets. I don't know. They're also much larger than they were, so maybe they were able to really sort of split the company down the middle, and Wolverine could have been in production for quite a while now. I still thought that next year was too fast for Wolverine. I think that rhythm for Insomniac doesn't seem tenable. I think if we look at the fact that they did, Miles and Spider-Man 2 in such quick succession, we do need to talk about how much was inherited from the previous games, as well as just inherited institutional knowledge, right? You have a team that's already comfortable working in that world and working with those systems of combat and leveling. and world building. So that was, I think, an expedited aspect of Spider-Man 2's development, as well as Miles Morales. I think it's very different when you're building a game from scratch. So it seems that Shinobi's pushing back on the notion that Death Stranding 2 will be 2025. That more firmly fits with PlayStation's marketing as of late. I feel like they are marketing stuff, shorter windows. I think you're going to see more and more companies lean toward this. I am not a fan of even what we saw from the PlayStation Showcase in 2023, where we just got cinematic trailers of Fair Games or Concord or Marathon. Those trailers don't communicate anything. Seemingly, we are getting Concord next year as one of the games of service games, along with Helldivers 2. So that's going to be sort of PlayStation's first foray outside of Gran Turismo. That's going to be sort of their first dip into this live service push that they're wanting to do. We'll have to see how those games survive. Again, I think the Game Awards is a great time to market a game, and it would allow for a potential 18-month window if the game is landing in 2025. If it lands in the first half, that I think still is a good marketing window. It allows them to do a bunch of marketing all next year to get everybody excited about Death Stranding 2, and it doesn't feel like the marketing of old, where they show you a game or they show you a trailer, and it's like we don't hear anything for years or months, or it turns into a game like Beyond Good and Evil 2, where we're like, we're not even sure if that game's ever even gonna come or if it's ever even gonna release. It's sort of lost in limbo. I just hope that we do stay on the path of shorter marketing windows. I think they're better. I think we went through a period of time where they would tell us about games way too early. We would see early footage of things like Watch Dogs and The Division 1, and then the games end up nothing like that when they finally come out, and it causes distrust and it causes anger. So I do think shorter marketing windows, it's better for the gamers, it's better for the devs. Ultimately, I think it's better for the product. I think it can allow for devs to avoid crunch culture. It can allow devs to avoid having to delay. And then when you delay the game, you're sort of passively making everybody think, well, the game's going to be perfect because they delayed it. So there's no excuse for any bugs or problems or issues. So it can also sort of passively hype the game, like the game's going to be amazing. The game's going to be fantastic. We've even seen Destiny delay their Final Shape expansion after telling everybody that it wasn't going to be delayed, which is interesting. But that, I think, is one of those things that can start to happen, is the passive hype building from a delay. Well, you don't have to deal with passive hype. You don't have to deal with a delay if you're not marketing the game well ahead of when it needs to be talked about. So, Death Stranding 2 release date, is it next year or the year after? We'll know soon enough. I would not be surprised if we finally see an appearance from Kojima at the Game Awards. He loves Jeff Keighley. I was kind of surprised he didn't poke his head out at Summer Game Fest. So it's time for Kojima probably to step out. And if he's going to do it, he's going to do it with his man Jeff. And the Game Awards is a great time to start talking about your game. Highly watched and very successful event so far, and grows every year. So I'll be there co-streaming it. Wonder what your predictions are for what are we going to see? What kind of trailers are we going to see? What games are going to win? What games aren't going to win? Going to be a good time. See you there December 7th. These videos typically roll over into a members-only debrief. So if you want to support the channel with a membership, you can do that, and then you get extra content. If you just want to continue seeing the live streams and these uploads, hit subscribe and the bell button, and I'll see you in the next video.